Everybody reads the reviews on Airbnb, VRBO, and when you get some bad reviews, you go down in the rankings and people don't want to rent your place, and then vice versa if it's the flip. So
that's really probably one of the biggest challenges of self-managing your short-term rental is managing tenants, make sure they have a great experience. So again, those reviews are what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. What's up, man?
Here we are, buddy.
There we are.
Once again, me and you, two dudes on a couch.
Rooftop living.
Yeah, absolutely.
There we are, man.
Yeah, we are at your Airbnb rental, which happens to be what we'll be talking about today.
Yeah. You've been crashing here. Not welcome guest.
For free.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that.
No, we're good.
Yeah, uninvited guest. Somehow you got the door code and here you were, just showed up one day.
Here I am, and just so you know, he doesn't change his door code. So if you stay here once, you can stay here whenever you want.
Oh man, cat's out of the bag.
True though.
Yeah, they clearly will let literally anybody in the house. Yeah, the homeless are taking over here.
Yeah.
God, what are squatters' rights here?
Lots.
Yeah, I know. I got one right here.
Yeah.
You grew out your hair. You started with a buzz cut, I believe, the minute that you had first gotten into here. And look at you now.
Look at me.
Yeah.
Look at me now, Mom.
Yeah.
I made it.
Slick back hair.
Yeah, I made it, Mom.
There it is.
So yeah, today we're going to talk about Airbnb, your experience buying this one. It's the first one that has been added to the portfolio. So we'll kind of let you talk a lot about your experiences. I'll just sit back, maybe take a little nap, and
maybe make a cocktail, hang out, pass me one. Hey, you stay busy, buddy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So yeah, let's start off. What attracted you to Airbnb, or short-term rentals, we should say?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I really just kind of I stumbled into this. And I also call it short-term rental. Everybody calls it Airbnb or whatever because it's a name title, but I have it listed on Airbnb, VRBO, there's booking.com. Marriott now has homes and villas and things like that you can rent through as well. And then you can do even direct booking too. But we won't dive too much into the intricacies of that and benefits of each of the different platforms. But really for here, it wasn't something that I had necessarily planned. Was living in a studio apartment down the street that I'd moved out of the Bay Area during middle of COVID, and just wanted to move toward the beach. Didn't know if I was going to be in San Diego, wanted to test it out. No one knew what the heck was going on with COVID. So just kind of moved there, got my feet wet here in San Diego, and then at a certain point said, okay, I'm looking for a primary residence, get more space, have some yard, some area for my dog. mainly him is what I'm looking for, and came Mission Beach is where we are today in San Diego, which is this little strip of land between the ocean and the bay that's behind us here. And initially wasn't really looking, but went and checked out this house and just fell in love. And with that though, it happened to be two houses on a single plot of land, a duplex, but two APN numbers. So the seller only wanted to sell both properties together, which it was March 2022. So that was kind of the prime area of real estate. It was hitting that boom. And so it was a bit of a benefit to have them sold together, because when it was initially one, they were getting, literally, I think 70 offers, and seller said, all right, I only want to sell them both together, even though that's two APN numbers, so you could sell them off one by one. So with that, it ended up shrinking the pool of being able to acquire this place, and just absolutely loved it. It's got a rooftop. It has hot tubs on the roof. Something that when I was looking and dreaming and even writing my goals in life for years, it was I live at the beach and I have a rooftop. And then the creme de la creme was sort of like I have a hot tub on the roof. Like, is that a realistic goal? We can talk about it, but I saw all these things and man, I got to have it. And so with that, I started to recognize that I could do short-term rental on this side and live on my primary residence on that side, look at the financials of it, and recognize that I can pay. At that time, I was thinking some of my mortgage help subsidize my side with the income from this side. So meaning that I'm paying the mortgage on this side, expenses, everything, and on top of that, there's some money left over to go pay my mortgage as well. And what I've found out actually, and how it's performed and through some optimization, is that this real estate, this asset, this income is now able to cover both mortgages.
Yeah, that's a good segue into, on a high level view, what are kind of the stats look like in regards to what you'd be able to get for rent on this place as a long-term rental, as a 6-month, 12-month rental, versus what you're getting now as a short-term rental?
Yeah, that's a good question. So
thank you.
Well, you are just a phenomenal question asker. Hey, you sit back, bring that cocktail out, buddy.
I just woke up from a nap, so I figured I'd throw something in.
I know, the homeless are really, really getting lazy these days, huh? Just taking over houses, asking random questions to strangers.
Good questions, though.
Yeah, great question.
Thank you.
So, yeah, obviously there's a lot less management when you look at long-term rental. You're usually signing 12-month lease. People are just kind of taking care of the place, and it's a little bit more hands-off with that. But with that, if you go short-term rental style, what I've seen is that you can make, on an income perspective, you can go 3 to 4 times what you can make on long-term rental.
That's pretty significant.
It's massive.
Yeah.
Yeah. It goes from not covering your mortgage to now covering both mortgages.
Yeah, so realistically, it wouldn't really make any sense for you to buy both sides of this townhouse if you're just doing this as a long-term rental.
No. I mean, I guess depends what your goals and aspirations were.
Yeah.
There is a lot more management associated with short-term rental. It's running a hotel. I mean, really what it comes down to, you are running a hotel. And you got to recognize that there's a lot of aspects of that. You can find property managers, or you can self-manage. And I've elected to self-manage, a few different reasons, but for starters, a property manager is going to take roughly about 20% of your income.
On the low end, I've heard stuff up to 30 plus %.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they'll also charge some of the other fees and things like that. So that's a significant impact.
Chunk of money. Yeah.
But also recognizing that it is management. It is working with guests, things like that. There's things that I'll talk about here in a second of how to facilitate, how to make things easier for you. But there was a lot of learnings from it. And then secondly, I'm next door. I can hop over, deal with tenants, help facilitate maintenance, look on cleaners, things like that. So those are some of the big pieces for me that I decided to self-manage. And then third, kind of back to what we had talked about, just any sort of property manager, they don't care about the place like you do. Yeah. I live next door. It's my house as well, my area. So I'm over here picking up trash. I'm facilitating guests. I'm making sure that somebody's not too loud. And you would hope that a property manager just has that level of care and consideration. And the fact is, they're not. It's not their house.
Yeah.
So those are some of the reasons why I had really decided to bring this in-house.
So what are some of those pieces to the puzzle to be able to manage short-term rental on your own?
Yeah, so there are some big pieces, big learning lessons. When I had first started out, it was trial by fire, really. It was, I don't know what I'm doing in this short-term rental space. What do I need? What are the pieces of the puzzle to make it that I'm not spending half a day every day here to try to facilitate things? So, first one was cleaners. So if you have a good cleaning crew, one that ideally you have a crew, one manager, and then a crew that helps to do the work, that was a big piece for me. So,
and one that doesn't want to come over to your side to chat with you?
I like ones that just kind of get in, get their work done, and get out. So in the end, that's a big piece, because guests are going to want, obviously, a very clean space. when it looks tidy, when there's that fresh scent coming in, that is first impression, and that sets things off correctly for tenants and reviews, positive impact, all of that. That I'll touch on one of those other learning lessons as well of reviews and how you get maybe some positive reviews there, because that is kind of your marketing. Everybody reads the reviews on Airbnb, VRBO, and when you get some bad reviews, you go down in the rankings and people don't want to rent your place, and then vice versa if it's the flip. So
that's really probably one of the biggest challenges of self-managing your short-term rental is managing tenants, make sure they have a great experience. So again, those reviews are what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And even, really kind of having a lot of, I'll say touches at the beginning. I met all of my guests at the beginning. I met them, walked them through the place, told them how to use specific things, any questions, shook their hand. They saw me, I'm a real person. Hey, by the way, it would really mean a lot to me. I'm just starting out here, and it would mean a lot to me if you gave me a 5-star review at the end, if you felt like it was worthy. So that was, cleaning piece was one of those puzzle pieces. Maintenance, you're gonna have maintenance issues. People are gonna screw up your house. Unfortunately, yeah. I've had my fair share. Little bit of a tangent, kind of, bad guests, we'll call them. Most are good, there's bad guests, but had one and that get these messages in the morning from this guest, hey, this place is disgusting, it's dirty everywhere. It was so hot in this building that I opened the window and there wasn't a screen and all my body got eaten by bugs. And this was my first really, really bad complaint. And I took it to heart. This has been my blood, sweat, tears for months, because I took this property and renovated it and got it up and running. And these was probably first month of me running the place. And it was really to heart. And I go, okay, let's meet. I'm next door. He doesn't meet me. He sends his sister and her boyfriend down to meet me. They don't allow me in. There's a baby inside sleeping. Oh, okay. Me being ignorant at the time, like, oh, okay, yeah, these guys got to be legitimate. And they go on a rant about how it's dirty and blah, blah, blah. And I went out of my way to say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'll have a cleaner here, today. I'll clean it myself even. What's wrong? Oh, the bugs too. We're going to leave today. This place is just not, I can't believe that you're selling this place to these people. And I was like, man, that's a little harsh, but okay, whatever. And so they end up, leaving. And I come to find out later on that they've put a hole through the wall in the kitchen area.
Nice.
They really were just trying to complain and get out of paying for any extra nights, because they wanted air conditioning, because they were some fat sons of bitches. And I was confused as well, thinking back at it, because he was talking about, we were in the bunk bed room, and then it comes out that somehow they had 4 people in a bunk bed situation.
Nice.
And I'm sitting there wondering, like, so you had what, like 2 big people in the top bunk? And man, that's some impressive structure on this thing. I'm surprised it didn't collapse. And let's all close the door and open the window and get eaten by bugs. So unfortunately, you're going to have those crappy tenants. You're going to have those challenging reviews, and all you got to do is just kind of put a smile on and say, okay, let's live to fight another day, and focus on the good tenants.
Like you said, the bad are kind of few and far between, at least at this point, from your experience.
Yeah, you're going to get them from time to time, and you just become better at it over time, and you don't let it affect you as much is a big piece of that too. Yeah. Somebody decided to fall asleep and puke in the master shower, which clogged the drain and flooded the house here, and it was like, you know what? Well, I'll just address it and get it done, and I did. Right? Yeah, exactly. So, cleaning, maintenance, tenant management, and guest communication were kind of some of those big pieces. Pricing was a big one.
Say, what about like softwares and how to price things out?
Yeah. So when I was, again, starting out, and I get this thing released out into the wild right around just before 4th of July, which is huge here in San Diego. All of a sudden I'm getting these bookings and I'm realizing, oh man, there's like 3 bookings in 24 hours. My price is bad. Yeah. I got it too low. I got to jack it up. Yeah. And it was me manually going in and doing these things through, Airbnb at that time was just all I had set up. And like, this is crazy. Like, hotels have softwares, hotels have teams to focus on their pricing, like the big national companies. And so I realized that the dynamic pricing tool was really the right route for me, which essentially uses statistics and demand to raise and lower your pricing. It's hands-off, it integrates into Airbnb, VRBO, and the others. So you would set, at least the one that I use is Price Labs. I also use something called Wheelhouse. Both are similar. Price Labs I've found to be, I like the interface. It integrates a little bit more than Wheelhouse, but they're all kind of getting to that same sort of level. But anyway, so you set a base price and then that demand fluctuates, and then you can set specific parameters. You can get pretty intricate with it as far as, I have an occupancy lower than this. Yeah. Let's drive up the rates or whatever. If all of a sudden I have a lot more vacancies, they'll lower my pricing so that my occupancy goes up.
Yeah, man, that's wild. Just how technology has really revolutionized a lot of different aspects of real estate. But something like this, where, like you said, you subscribe to the software and then it does all that work that would have took you hours of researching what's going on, and then plus you'd have to set up some probably Excel spreadsheets when it comes to calculating vacancies and how it's having an impact on what the rent rates are and whatnot. So having that software, man, that's huge.
It was really big. It ends up being a full-time job. You're trying to manually do that, and that was another piece of if you do go the route of property managers, for instance. One of my questions as I was interviewing people was, what softwares do you use? What pricing tools do you use? And there were far too many, in my opinion, that were saying, I compared them to a dynamic pricing tool, and my manual pricing has performed much better. I'm like, yeah. First of all, congrats to you, amazing. Yeah. I'm not convinced that's true.
Yeah.
Like, you're relying on a human now to go do what software is able to do, and automatically and engage, and it's taking all this data in that a human doesn't really have, right? Yeah. So that would be one of the big pieces for me. If you're interviewing folks, make sure to ask what softwares. So, cleaning, pricing, maintenance, tenant communication, tenant management comes out into now bundled into, let's say, a software. Yeah. So like property management softwares have really helped me to take that workload off. So basically I've used both Hospitable and Guesty. I currently use Guesty. I liked Hospitable as well, but that software will allow you to integrate your pricing tools. So I still use Price Labs that has a dynamic pricing tool. My cleaners are connected into my Guesty. So anytime there's a new reservation, it automatically sends her a text and an email that then she communicates to her team in cleaners. So completely automated, completely hands-off for me. Maintenance I can have in there as well. Let's see, scheduling, my calendar, they can all see that. I can add team members. If I had a bunch of different short-term rentals, it kind of breaks it out. So that tool has been really nice for me. You can integrate smart locks into it as well, so it'll automatically push a new door code. So you think about that, you really recognize that all of a sudden I don't really need to be next door.
Absolutely.
I could be kind of wherever to help facilitate some of these things, and it's kind of doing it, I'll say automatically, but more or less.
Yeah.
And then the tenant communication. So all the tenant communication drops into a single unified inbox.
Yeah.
Along with your calendars. So if I have listings on Airbnb, VRBO, booking.com, so all of that integrates into a single calendar, so you don't end up with double bookings or manually going in to go block it off on the different platforms, or now messaging, checking the different platforms as well. Additionally, even just the act of leaving a review, I can send automatic reviews. That's
Requests?
Nope. So I do send now a message after a tenant checks out that automatically pushes every time. I have a check-in instructions that sends out a week in advance, and then 1 day before, and then day of, and then 1 day before checkout, and then another one. So I have these constant pings that has my voice and sort of verbiage in there.
What would you say, random question, what percentage of people actually leave a review once they leave? Does that take a lot, and the kind of second part, does that take a lot of effort on your end to follow up with them to leave a review, or is it just one thing where they're happy they kind of do it on their own versus you having to follow up with them 2 or 3 times?
95% leave a review.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without you really having to ask?
I ask now before, so Airbnb in particular, and VRBO actually, but they follow up. They have an automated follow-up process that says, hey, you should leave a review. Hey, how was your stay? And then they'll leave one, and then I can leave one, or I leave one, they leave one, but you don't show each other until both have left a review. But what I found was that in Airbnb and VRBO, it'll say, 5 stars, and each one will be like 4 stars, really good experience. 5 stars was way over the top, everything. But then when you look at a super host, which they allow you to then excel in the rankings, and you get a badge and things like that. But it's something that you want to be a super host. And
cool badge, or?
It's a pretty sweet badge. Yeah, it's something that I actually wear every single night to bed now that I'm a super host.
Nice, bro. Are you super host?
Yeah, recently.
Wow, bro, you did it.
Yeah. But that, if you have to be a 4.8 stars or better. So if you think about that, somebody giving you 4 stars thinks, oh, that's great.
Yeah, right.
Actually, it's not. It just ruined my rankings, and thank you. So now I have a follow-up that says, oh, hey, a 5-star review would really mean the world to us, which us is me,
you,
but it
you umbrella.
Really, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So those are some of the big key takeaways for me. It's been a great experience. I always see myself having this place here, and traveling to it, having a place that I could come back to, me, my family. I mean, have friends come and stay here like you're doing today.
So we're friends now?
I'm really kind of doing more charity work these days.
Yeah, I'll take it, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think one thing that definitely should be brought up, just very briefly though, is kind of the regulatory space when it's coming to short-term rentals. You see a lot of times in local media and whatnot, changes are making to short-term rentals, having to have licensing, things like that. I know here in San Diego particularly, you bought this guy, and then we were looking at one just, maybe you'll see in the background, just a few houses down, but we kind of backed off of, we did back away from that guy because of some of the regulations and licensing that was going to be happening here in San Diego. So I think that's something to briefly touch on for people to really consider before they jump into a short-term rental game. Yeah,
and that is the limitation, the challenge, the concern really when you're looking at new markets or getting into short-term rentals in general, is that there are a lot of cities that are enacting these policies and requirements, legal challenges to be able to say, okay, you can have short-term rentals here, there's no short-term rentals here, there's only a few short-term rentals here. So understanding, one, if there has been regulation in place. To me, if they've already made regulation, that is safer in the fact that you at least know what the rules are.
Absolutely.
So the rules aren't coming later for you. Like here in San Diego, for instance, they just passed short-term rental policy that said only 1% of the overall houses could be short-term rental. But here in Mission Beach, it could be 30% of the overall houses, just knowing that this is a short-term rental place. And then secondly is that you can only have one license. Each individual can only have one license.
Yeah, that's big.
So, if you had 10 different houses, all of a sudden now you got to put it in different people's names or go long-term rental or whatever it is with it, right? So
definitely changes the dynamic of what you originally thought your investment was going to be.
yeah,
So I think that's a good point too, is any investment you get into, it's always good to have multiple exit strategies in case something like this happens where you get into short-term rental, all of a sudden regulations change and now you can't perform what you want to do for your business plan.
Yeah.
And you pivot. But by preparing for that up front, at least you have a plan B to go back to.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, if this doesn't work, what's my next step? Because otherwise you don't want to be stuck with the bag. Because if all of a sudden we had talked about at the beginning of the episode, if I had to migrate to long-term rental for this place, I just cut my income by a third.
Significantly, yeah.
And now my income doesn't cover the mortgage here. It doesn't help over there. And so it changes the entire game.
Yeah. Well, cool, bud. It was nice chatting with you on this little couch of yours.
Hey.
In San Diego, weather's nice.
It was okay having you here.
It was?
Yeah.
Did I bring the heat? Was I a good question guy?
And you did okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Subpar.
Okay. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you. Bye.